always loaded. I had to stay down when they got what I wanted. Now when they see me, them bitches be on me. Now when I pull up, them niggas hate on me. I got more money than niggas be homies. Had the grind for the shit, did it all by my loan.
Alright, welcome back YouTube to another video. Thank you for tuning in. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Google. I think Google will have a great year this year. Google has been making a lot of improvements inside the business, showing that they can be a great player in the long run, right? We all know about YouTube. You're already watching this video on YouTube, but we also know that Waymo, which is owned by Google, is something that's very competitive with Tesla and the robotic cars. We also know about Gemini, that's in the chatbot space, right? So Google has a lot of different ways of generating money and revenue, and they have a lot more things in the future. So for right now, I'm just going to get into the technical parts, right? So I'm just going to read the chart, and I'm going to see where are some good buy prices for Google. Where do I want to invest in for the year if it comes to my buy points? So just looking at this chart, I'm looking at the daily chart, right? We can see from January of last year, Google, right, has pretty much been going straight up, right? It's been going straight up since January of last year. What I'm going to do is add some support and resistance lines on the chart, just so I can see where can Google possibly fall down to. When we hit it right there. Right, so if I'm looking at this, I grabbed it from the January 23rd. Actually, we can zoom out a little more. Let's see how I can see it fully, right? So this is from January 23rd. As you can see right down here, it tells you the date. Right, so that's from January 23rd. We hit right here as well in July. Then again and again and again, right? And then it took off. And it hasn't been back towards this line since October, right? And it's also creeping up with the 78 EMA, right? And this EMA is just a indicator letting me know that it's like a magnet, right? The price is always trying to come back towards that price line. So what I'm looking for is first for Google to fall down within this range. Let me see if there's some support lines that I could possibly add on to Google as well. Go ahead and add our top part of our channel. All right, so as you guys see, I grabbed it from the September high, right? And then it came down and touched the line in October, and then it took off, touched our line again in November. So I'm looking for it to possibly come down and touch this 307 mark. Go ahead and add a line. Right, so I'm looking for it to come back down within this range, right? Why I want to add this range is this. You can see that this was a important range for the sellers. The sellers sold it all the way down, then the market took it back up. So I'm gonna get it right at the bottom of that. So the first thing I'm looking for Google to do is just sell down within this, probably come down to our line. If it comes down to our line, or if it touches within our line, that'll be my first buy point. It just depends on how the chart moves, and when it gets to that buy point, I'll probably nibble in right on that mark just to see if it'll give me some momentum back towards the top, right? But if it doesn't, if it comes to this line and doesn't take off and go to my next point, my next buy area would be right here at this 297 mark. And then lastly, I would buy in right here at this 235 mark. And that's because you can see that is exactly where trend reverses and goes back to the upside. So I'm just looking where did trend change, and that would be my buy-in areas for Google for the year.
These companies are known as the OpenAI gang because they are heavily involved with OpenAI. And it is clear that Google is now starting to outperform all of the businesses that are associated heavily with OpenAI. It also seems like the outperformance has started to accelerate since Google has announced Gemini 3.0, which is said to be the best model in the world by a wide margin. This is at the same time as data is coming out showing that Perplexity downloads have fallen off of a cliff and are said to be down 80% so far from their peak in 2025. And this is interesting to me because just earlier this year, people were saying that Perplexity was going to disrupt Google, specifically Google Chrome, because Perplexity launched their own web browser, which is something that I don't even hear about online anymore. In fact, I don't even see a lot of posts coming from Perplexity anymore, when at one point, my X feed was covered with how Comet was going to disrupt Google and Google Chrome. So it's very interesting how just over the course of a year, the narrative has completely shifted, and the data is suggesting that the hype around Perplexity has completely fallen off of a cliff. And ultimately, I think that this is making it more clear that Google has successfully defended its moat against competitors, and Google is now looking like more of a clear AI winner. Additionally, the most recent data seems to suggest that Google Gemini is continuing to take market share from OpenAI's ChatGPT. It also seems like Gemini is the only other model that is continuing to consistently take market share from OpenAI. However, OpenAI is still projected to grow its revenue massively all the way out to 2030. And analysts are currently expecting OpenAI to hit $213.6 billion in revenue in the year of 2030 versus the $12.5 billion in revenue that the company is projected to do in 2025. So analysts are expecting OpenAI to roughly 19x its revenue over the next 5 years. However, these same analysts are projecting OpenAI to lose $76.5 billion in the year of 2030. So even though OpenAI is projected to grow its revenues significantly, it looks like it's also projected to see widening losses and significant losses even all the way out to the year of 2030. And since OpenAI is continuing to lose so much money, it's estimated that the business will need to raise over $200 billion from investors over the next 5 years just to meet these projections. That is a lot of capital to raise. And for OpenAI to raise this much, it needs to continue performing exceptionally well and maintain all of the hype that is surrounding the company. If OpenAI's business slows down for any reason, or it becomes clear that it cannot compete with Google's Gemini, then it's not going to be able to fund its growth. I personally think that Microsoft is eventually just going to acquire OpenAI because I really struggle to see these projections materializing and the market being so willing to continue letting OpenAI raise upwards of $200 billion over the next 5 years, especially when Google is clearly taking market share. They have the better model and they are gaining more momentum. I just think that it's going to be more and more challenging for OpenAI to raise this much money when it seems like they are starting to lose momentum. And overall, I do think that it is becoming increasingly clear that OpenAI is struggling to compete with Google's Gemini, especially since the company is losing so much freaking money to try and do so. Whereas Google's business is highly profitable, it's generating over $100 billion a year in profits, and therefore Google can run Gemini at a loss just to bleed OpenAI dry, which I would not be surprised to see them do. So I think that just for me personally, the battle between Gemini and OpenAI is starting to become more and more in favor of Google and Google winning. And I ultimately think that this is why Google has seen a lot more buying over the past few weeks and why the OpenAI gang, if you want to call them that, has seen a lot more selling off. Now, another reason why Google stock is seeing buying and Nvidia is seeing some selling off is because it was recently announced that Google is looking to sell its TPUs to third parties for the first time. And Meta is said to be in discussions to buy billions of dollars worth of Google TPUs by the year of 2027. Nvidia then put out a tweet responding to this news where they said, "We're delighted by Google's success. They've made great advancements in AI, and we continue to supply to Google. NVIDIA is a generation ahead of the industry. It's the only platform that runs every AI model and does it everywhere computing is done. NVIDIA offers greater performance, versatility, and fungibility than ASICs, which are designed for specific AI frameworks and functions." So NVIDIA is saying here that its GPUs are still a generation ahead of Google's TPUs, and basically that they're better for all-around workloads for artificial intelligence. They're trying to say that Google's TPUs are still impressive, and they're congratulating Google on their success, but the TPUs are for a very specific type of AI workload. And for specific workloads, maybe these TPUs will perform better. But ultimately, NVIDIA is trying to say here that for general purpose use, their GPUs are still significantly better and are a generation ahead of all of the competitors. But it was still interesting to see NVIDIA come out and say this as the largest company in the world that has the clear market share in this GPU, TPU space. It seems like there wasn't really a need or reason for NVIDIA to say this, and that caused some speculation online that NVIDIA only put out this post because they are feeling nervous about Google's TPUs potentially taking some of their market share and starting to attack NVIDIA's moat. Because if NVIDIA was truly in this very secure place where their moat was intact and it couldn't be disrupted, then people are just saying that they wouldn't have put out this post, basically saying, hey, good job, Google, but we're still much better.
I think Google will repeat a great year this year because I think it is taking on this position as it has I don't know if demystified is the right word I want to use, but I've been saying this for the longest. Google comes from the era of, let me say that again. It comes from the pedigree of it know what it's like to be the innovative company that changes things, right? And when you come from that, oftentimes you don't let that happen to you, right? So Google knocked off Yahoo Finance. Yahoo. They knocked them off. But Yahoo had the opportunity to buy Google, and they didn't. So I kept saying, why do we think that OpenAI is gonna put Google out of business? Why do we think that OpenAI, like it's a term called Google it.
Right, what you gonna say? You gonna chat that?
The term is not, I'm a chat GTP or whatever it is.
It's too many syllables.
It's too much. Hey, Google it. When you take on a moniker like that, it's different. So let's dig into that though. The company has it's one of the top 3 companies with the most money. I'm not saying chat is not gonna be a revolutionary company, but first of all, family, you got a whole bunch of debt and you got a whole bunch of people you owe money to. You trying to IPO right now, going to get a $1 trillion IPO so you can get that because you owe a lot of people. There's no way you can overthrow this type of company. 1, they got too much money. 2, they got too much market share. So, next, they make some of the best, they probably got the best investing background of anything, of any company. The returns they get from investing is crazy. So let's go a little further into this situation. With all the money they got, with all the resources they got, do you think that they not gonna be willing to empty the bucket on seeing what this company is doing to beat me and then beat them? So let me take you back a little bit. Let me take you back a little bit to show you how this happens time and time again. And so while you still trying to hustle money and do deals with Disney and all these other people, guess what Google over here saying? Bro, I don't need none of them. Google saying, hey, not only is Gemini and the Nano Banana better than chat, hey, NVIDIA, we're gonna create some chips too. Watch this, of the search, they have 89% of the search. YouTube is the most watched platform. It's watched more than Netflix. YouTube has more hours than Netflix. They got search on lock. Then you talk about cloud business. Are we serious? Come on, man. Stop it. Nah, I'm not saying that.
We hate them, they still got Android.
And they still got Android that every now and then they overtake iPhone. Like it's not, and I'm gonna be real with you, it's not that iPhone is just a dominant phone. Like there's a battle like once every 2 years where Android is the most bought phone. So they still competitive, 1 or 2 in that arena. Bruh, Waymo, Tesla is beefing with them now. It's like, bro, like Waymo is a real deal. I'm seeing more and more the cars with nobody in it. Me and my daughter looked at like 4 of them. I was like, Stink, you get it? She's like, I ain't getting that, daddy. I'm like, you smart. I said, you smart. You your daddy child for sure.